Thousand Year Door, Paper Mario TTYD, getting a remake, if not just a modern re-release looking all dolled up and whatnot. 2 weeks later, yep, that is still not real. This is not real life. This remake is not real at all. Diving into the trailer, small dialogue changes like Bowser calling Kammy Koopa a lunkhead as opposed to the original Airhead, one of the battles in Petal Meadows consisting of 5 Goombas instead of 2 or 3, not common if possible at all in the original, as well as a new purple Toad character in Glitzville. We can see some changes are apparent in this upcoming version of Thousand Year Door. So I figured, why not list off some changes the new Thousand Year Door remake could offer that the original game either couldn't because of time or simply due to the hardware. And as a guy who loves the original to death, there are plenty of changes and additions they could adopt that would make an already extremely great Mario adventure an even better game than that for most if not everyone. I have at least 10 ideas or so boiling, some major, plenty minor, so without further delay, here are more or less a dozen or so changes I think Paper Mario The Thousand Year Door could benefit from greatly from this remake. And it's weird I'm making this statement, but now we kinda have to consider it since we're gonna get an influx of new people picking up Thousand Year Door for the first time ever. Spoilers! Near 20-year-old game, I know, I've played it dozens of times, but now we got a whole new batch of people giving it a shot, so I'm gonna toss some important story and gameplay info here if you don't want none of that and want to try TTYD as blind as possible when the remake drops. Spoilers ahead. There we go. Bless the noose, our old friend is back though. To start this off with something I think we could all agree on, the first major thing I want from this version of Thousand Year Door: boss rematches / boss rush. Thousand Year Door has fantastic boss battles. Basically every major boss and most mini-bosses are a treat to fight. All kinds of attacks, strategies, music themes, etc. If we had some way of being able to rematch those bosses again during the post-game, that would be extremely cool. And Thousand Year Door's post-game is pretty lacking, all things considered. Outside a handful of side quests, and if you save the Pit of 100 Trials after the final chapter, there's really not much else to do once you clear the main story. Being able to give us boss rematches would go a long way in making the post-game considerably better, with even just that single addition. Bolstered more if there was a side mode within where we could face each boss one after another, with a limited amount of health restores. Mario and Luigi did this with every installment since Bowser's Inside Story. We got to refight bosses and then do a boss rush mode, leading into a secret boss fight. And now Super Mario RPG is allowing us to rematch bosses in that game's remake too. And even with that, I'm stretching it from here on with this specific change. Why not new bosses or just unused ones too? As far as unused enemies go, we had this meter bot that went unused. Bringing back unused enemies would be welcome, but new or just more bosses period is always a good thing too. That rush / rematch mode could incorporate Junior Troopa from 64 as a secret boss with all of his abilities. Maybe a stray boss or two from 64, or Super could come around, the Black Shy Guy, Master Toad, Francis, Shadoo or something. Take a page out of Mario and Luigi or Bug Fables and make Thousand Year Door more replayable and memorable by giving us a boss rematch and or boss rush mode. That I think is a very realistic desire a lot of us can agree on. Second, neuter some of the backtracking. Thousand Year Door has always been a great game, but the one thing it's become the poster boy for is the backtracking segments. I could sit here and argue Super Paper Mario and Sticker Star's backtracking is far worse by a wide margin if you've played those games, but for whatever reason, I guess because it's heralded as the peak of Paper Mario, people mark how horrid the backtracking is for Thousand Year Door. Chapters 2, 4, and 7 in particular. The trek back and forth through Boggly Woods, you going to and from the creepy steeple 3 times each, and the general white goose chase in Chapter 7. Not to mention getting Gold Bob's signature in Poshley Heights in that same chapter. Chapter 4 is goated to me, even with that, and everything about Chapter 7 holds up well, except for that. The backtracking in Chapter 7 being everyone's least favorite part about Thousand Year Door entirely. Chapter 5's got a little bit of it, but I think most can agree either Chapter 5 or 2's the least egregious example. And even then, once again, people think this game's remarkable anyways despite the backtracking, which is a mild annoyance at the end of it, but still of worthy criticism. I doubt we can expect them to change the world and level design, but one thing I think that can alleviate this is just simple warps of the player's choosing in certain segments of those chapters. Chapter 2. You go through the woods to the Great Tree, then you have to make the trek to Flurry's house, and then learn of the Shadow Sirens holding her necklace. Then you gotta circle all the way back to the starting area, beat them, then go back to Flurry, and then go to the Great Tree in the middle of the world. All while every in-between is filled with enemies. At the bare minimum, I think the warp to Flurry's house after beating the Shadow Sirens would help a lot with this chapter. But even giving the player a warp to near the starting area after finding out about Flurry's necklace would also be big. But this is why I think it's imperative they give the player the option to choose taking the warp or not, because it'll give the player more flexibility. Say what you will about having to backtrack and deal with fighting or dodging and running away from enemies. At least you get item drops, badge drops, and experience from fighting baddies that contribute to buffing your health, flower points, or badge points. So at least you get a benefit from dealing with them. You say no, you still get to get stronger and get more coins, items, badges, and whatnot. If not, you take that warp, you say yes, it'll save you some extra time. Same for Chapter 4, especially with dealing with the Mazy Daisies. The first trek to Creepy Steeple should remain unchanged. And when Dupless steals Mario's body, I do think this part, Mario should trek back to Twilight Town to give the player that sense that Mario's all alone without his identity and party members, basically bare naked at that point. It really sells the situation Mario's in halfway through the chapter. But when Vivian joins your party and you get an inkling to go back to Creepy Steeple, then you should get a text blurb asking you to go back to Creepy Steeple immediately. Say no, you trek and get a feel for Vivian and her abilities. Say yes, and you could just do the puzzle shenanigans and get the letter P. Once that's obtained, get a second optional warp asking you to go back to the shed by Twilight Trail, and then when Dupless is confronted, a final blurb asking you to return to Creepy Steeple. Chapter 4 is one of my favorites, and this would alleviate the only legitimate issue that chapter's got. And same applies for Chapter 7. Literally any instance the game tells you to go to a previous location, whether for Gold Bob's signature or to find General White, who knows where, and literally all the other chapter locations, you warp to that specified area over and over until it loops back around to Fahr Outpost. It deadass saves 15 to 20 minutes of players' time, and simple stuff like this would go a super long way in really solidifying T2ID in more people's eyes, even for just a simple quality of life feature like that. Third change? Toggleable sound test, an area or a character or a feature on the Mailbox SP, where you can listen to the game's soundtrack throughout the adventure and select individual songs. You either get tracks for free as you play or buy a small number of coins per music track. That'd be a really cool feature. On top of it, being able to swap between the remastered soundtrack and the original game soundtrack as you play normally. Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition and the upcoming Super Mario RPG Remake do this. So being able to do this for Thousand Year Door would be beautiful and kind of realistic. Fourth, better side quest format. There's a side quest board in Thousand Year Door called the Trouble Center, where you tackle NPCs and the troubles they have. More open up as you play more of the game. The problem is you can take only one of these at a time, and you have to go back to the Trouble Center each time you either want to cancel a current trouble you're taking and pay up for that, or whenever you clear just one trouble and want to take another. Let us accept multiple troubles at once. Don't restrict them to just one at a time. Bug Fables, for example. That has side quests in which you do side quests that involve retrieving objects, fight enemies, or even bosses for people, and you get rewards. Thousand Year Door is mostly the same. You can do multiple of these at the same time though, and you keep track in one of the logs in your main menu. Give that to Thousand Year Door. That'll help encourage people to explore more of Rogueport and the surrounding areas far more, making the side quests and optional gameplay far more flexibly accessible. On top of that, if that does come to pass, give us more quests to do, especially for post-game once again. More stuff to find, more coins to obtain, more items, badges, maybe even find more and new enemies and bosses. That'd be fun and dandy, but all the more if we could just take multiple quests at once and we'd be able to keep track in a log somewhere on our own. Fifth, a lot more minor ones from here on out. Give us the spin dash from 64. In Paper Mario 64, Mario gains this move that lets you spin and gain more speed the faster you go. The Speedy Spin badge making you go faster, and the spin attack allowing you to defeat weaker foes instantly. All this while jumping lets you cancel the move's end lag. I think having that badge in Thousand Year Door would be significantly convenient than both waiting until Chapter 3 to get the Mini Yoshi just to get that speed boost, or even to just eliminate having to swap out the Mini Yoshi altogether whenever you want to move faster on foot. The Mini Yoshi would still have his uses between crossing longer gaps and in battle with his gulp and multi-hit attacks, but having more speedy travel options than just him would add to the convenience and quality of life. Sixth, puny AI, kind of annoying in Chapter 2.
especially when crossing gaps or approaching piters. I get they're afraid of piters, but still, the game could benefit if the puny AI wasn't as janky and a pain in the ass to deal with. Between this and the backtracking stuff, Chapter 2's not high for a lot of people. This would also benefit that chapter immensely. 7th, a hard mode, if not New Game Plus. I'm not getting my hopes up for this one, but someone noticed how in Petal Meadows in the remake, Mario fights 5 Goombas as opposed to the usual 2 or 3, which is way more than in the original at that point in the game. So it's led some to think we could get a hard mode. I don't think that means anything, but a hard mode for veteran T2ID players would be a lot of fun. The only Mario RPG to give us a hard/challenge mode was Mario & Luigi Dream Team. You beat that game, you unlock challenge mode, which is the campaign, but enemies and bosses are tougher and you have a more limited pool of items you can stash. Whether outright or upon clearing the game, if we get access to a hard mode, challenge mode, New Game Plus or whatever, for hardcore veteran 1000-year door enjoyers like me, I would love that. I would love that. I'm not expecting it. That would be hella fun if that was in the remake. 8th, more badges. Mega Quake and Mega Smash from 64 got cut. Reintroduce some older badges again, or even think of new ones, whether some more attacks, restrictions, risk-reward type badges, or whatever. Badges could probably benefit from some balance rework too, but the badges and how they are in 1000-year door and 64 is part of the fun as well. A better balance of their power and utility, because some like Mega Rush and others are mad strong, but I'd be content if it was the same. Broadening that badge variety, on the other hand, would be a fun way to extend the strategy and gameplay depth of an already deep gear/combat system. 9th, side arcade, maybe in the casino on the west side of Rogueport, where we can replay the Bowser platforming segments. There are only 3 levels like that, where you play as Bowser in these 2D Mario-styled levels. They were simple, but they were very fun and cute. We could use more of that. If you somehow made more new levels out of that, even better, but even being able to replay the 3 that we got and compete with others online for a high score type situation or speedrunning, it would be a cute little mode. 10th, I'm unfamiliar with this one, but there was a supposed rumor or leak that we were supposed to return to past places post-game to regroup with our partners, at least in the Mini Yoshi's case at Glitzville, where we would have had to redo fighting at Glitzville, all the guys to rise up the ranks, leading us to fighting the Mini Yoshi at Glitzville at the championships to get him to rejoin. Which would have been a pain to grind, but cool at the same time just narratively. I like that idea, and you could probably extend the regroup with the other party members too. I think this would be a double-edged sword, because it's another layer of backtracking in of itself if you extend it to the other party members post-game. But the idea of doing Glitzville again and fighting the Mini Yoshi would be cool. I could take or leave this one too. I don't think a lot of people really like this one.
11th, to expand on that though, give us more 64 partner cameos. Allowing them to partner up
with us post-game would be omega cool, but even just more cameos for Goombario, Bombette, Lackluster, Watt, Sushi, and whatnot. Only Lady Bo and Parakarry cameo in TTYD from the original, and while the 64 title theme remix in the trailer's probably the new theme for Mario's house in this remake, since design-wise it's mixing elements of how the house looks in both 64 and TTYD, who knows if any of that implies more 64 love in this remake somewhere. More 64 partner cameos could 100% happen, and that would be really cool. And 12th, the last one I could think of, and the one I think is the least likely to happen, it would make this remake stand out more from the original though. Throughout the game, Luigi describes a big adventure he's on each chapter, finding the marvelous compass in the Waffle Kingdom with his own set of partners. For the longest time, we've had people request a re-release of 1000-Year Door with a side campaign exploring Luigi's adventures of this exactly. A Paper Luigi The Marvelous Compass campaign. That'd basically be a whole extra game within a remake of another game, so that's why I doubt it. Especially when this remake looks so visually incredible, but you never know. Maybe fans will get an extra serving with such a side campaign, and would also add to Luigi's character and the overall world itself. Paper Luigi The Marvelous Compass. Who knows if we're gonna get that in the game? We could. I doubt. Highly unlikely. To me, highly unlikely. But it would be cool. Bowser's Fury type situation, but more effort and work on a bigger scale, sure. I wouldn't object to that at all.
So that's all the changes I could think of. Let me know any specific changes or additions, minor ones, major ones, quality of life stuff, and more in those comments that you may have that I didn't bring up, or any changes I did mention that you agree on. Let me know down below. Thank you very much for watching, and I have more videos to create because I love gaming, I love Mario, and I love you all. Stay super.
Yo, hey, man, hey. 我来呀！共和大哈哈呀！拉面，嘿，来面，白哥面，共和再见呀！哈哈，拉面，翘手面，谢谢。